I started out in history and geography teaching education, like history education, geography teaching education. And so I love history. Maybe more than the average person, right? You tell someone and they're like, oh, okay, right? And so when I read it, it really, one of the things that I thought about, I saw a statement in one of the old documents from Idaho PTA that said, it was from Winston Churchill. And for people who don't know, Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister of Great Britain during World War II and after. And the Prime Minister, that would be like equivalent to the President of the United States. See how my teacher stuff comes out? I'm like, let me give you these little snippets here along the way. I cannot help myself. And so he said that the farther back you look, the farther ahead you are likely to see. And that's profound because as we understand where Idaho PTA has been, we can see where we're going to go and understand those components of our roots to be able to understand being tethered to that mission so that we can go forward in an intentional and purposeful way. Like you mentioned, right? These roots that are focused on a mission of advocacy for our Idaho children. And so things that really struck me were, the National Congress of Mothers, which is now referred to as National PTA, was started in 1897. And these women were very intentional about bringing different components into the education process for kids that were going to be beneficial for them. So, for example, PTA helped start the school lunch program. We may have it, I like to think that we have it today because of PTA. We have free kindergarten because of PTA. And there are different components in this book that talk about even getting first grade for free for all kids. And so the Idaho group was started in 1905. So in September of 1905, they had their very first meeting. And it was initially, they were called mother circles, where women were getting together around the state. And they had their very first meeting in September of 1905 in Nampa. And what I think is significant is that these mother circles sent delegates from their circles to this very first meeting. And this is where all of the delegates came from. This was profound to me. Idaho Falls, Moscow, Payette, Nampa, Caldwell, Mountain Home, Weiser, St. Anthony, Hot Springs, Blackfoot, Wallace, and Lewiston all came to Nampa. It wasn't like they had to drive a mile.
Right. We're talking 1905.
Yes.
I mean, they may have been on a horse.
Yes, I know.
This could have been horse and buggy coming from Lewiston.
Yes. It took them a long time to get here. And so what that tells me is that these women were so connected to their purpose. They cared deeply about what they were doing in their communities. And so from these mother circles, Idaho PTA began. And they didn't call it Idaho PTA back then. They called it the Idaho Congress of Mothers. And then over the decades, they incorporated teachers and fathers. And we were kind of laughing earlier about this idea that mothers just had this group first and we didn't include fathers.
It was an all women's group for sure. And then they were like, we might as well open it up to the men. We'll give them a vote.
Yeah. And
I love it.
Yeah. It was about, it was a little bit more than 10 years into their organization. They had an intentional process of having Father's Nights with the students, like with the kids.
Which kudos to them for recognizing so early how important the fathers were in this mission.